Coming up, Debbie and I are going to do our Friday roundup. And wow, we have a lot to round up. The results of the 2024 election, a number of facets of that haven't really been covered. And I might also be collecting on a bet that I won on Tuesday. Good stuff. Hey, if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, listening on Apple, Google, or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Debbie and I here for our Friday roundup, and we've been feeling good all week, I have to say, and this was a case where we didn't quite know how this was going to come out. I think as it got closer to Election Day, I became more and more confident that Trump would win it and win it pretty decisively. You, who had bet me on the other side, right? I think, well, we had the same bet in 2020, and you won. I had to pay up $1,000, right? Mm-hmm. But talk a little bit about your how you felt going into the election, and then, of course, the outcome.
Well, I always say it's my gut. Like I always use that litmus test, I guess, is that my gut is telling me that this is going to happen, right? So in 2020, my gut was telling me that they were going to win, but that they were going to not be honest about it, right? And I just had that feeling. They would finagle their way. Yeah, that they were going to do some shenanigans, and lo and behold, they did, right? So it's not that I felt good that I won, but I was like, well, maybe my gut is usually right. I think it was wrong in 2016. I thought, there's no way Hillary's going to win for sure, all that. And then he won in 2016, and I was shocked in a good way, right? But nevertheless, I was shocked. So this time you kept saying, and I was reading all this stuff, oh yeah, Trump is leading in this state and leading in that state. And I'm like, we never should spike the football. Let's not do that, because we're going to get super excited and then we're going to be really disappointed when they come back and they say she wins, right? So my gut was kind of leaning towards, well, maybe, just maybe, he's going to pull it off and win.
Right. And then you told me, you're like, hey, yeah, we're having this bet, but you said, I'll be really happy to lose the bet.
I will be.
Right? That you'll be thrilled. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing was, on election night, well, you decided at some point to check out, right? And the outcome had not been decided because Trump had not, in no way had he already won Pennsylvania. So I kept waking you up.
Oh, yes. You did keep waking me up.
With like further updates.
Yeah, you would turn the light on. I mean, I was like, oh, what's going on? No wonder my sleep score was 55.
Oh, you mean on your
yeah, my little
on your
aura,
ring.
My little ring. No, but then when Trump came on to speak, you were in the living room watching it, and I grabbed my phone and I'm watching it on my phone from the bedroom, because I had to watch it. I just had to, and I was awake already because you'd woken me up. So no, it was a really, really good night. It was my score of 55 was completely worth it. I have to say.
So, honey, you're gonna have to pay up. And when do you intend to settle our accounts?
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, okay.
I mean, do you have the money right now?
Yeah.
You do. You brought it.
I can't.
Are you going to write me? Writing me a check does me no good. You know why? Because it's coming from our joint account.
Oh, yeah, I know. Hold on.
So I think it's going to have to be cash. And if you have it, I will be collecting.
I have it right here.
You do? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh wow! You actually did you actually go to the bank? There's some crisp $100 bills I see here.
I had some high hopes with this money, but here we go. Here's one.
Okay, here we go.
One.
Okay, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay.
Oy.
Hold on a second. I just have to make sure this money is not counterfeit.
Stop it.
Well, it's like a ballot.
The Monopoly money.
The Monopoly
you
money.
didn't know that. I took it out of the Monopoly board.
This is more trustworthy than a ballot because guess what? It has watermark right here and it has an ID number, a long ID number. Okay, well, this is great.
Yep.
This is some...
don't lose it.
Don't spend it all in one place, as they say. All right, we'll keep it here.
Okay.
And but let's talk about the. I mean, you said to me, and I said the same thing right after Election Day. We see this as a providential election, right? And we see this as an extension of like God's benevolence
hand
to our country,
grace, God's grace,
which is somewhat undeserved, I have to say. I mean, we as a country look at our culture, look at the. Look at all these people talking about, how they are taking a certain almost pagan pleasure in having abortions. I mean, there's a sicko dimension to our culture. And I remember, I think I quoted to you that Jerry Falwell had said to me, this is 3.5 decades ago. He said this line, which I've never forgotten. He said, Dinesh, if God spares America, he'll owe an apology to Sodom and Gomorrah. Whoa. And I remember that it was a little startling when he said it. And of course, our culture was not the kind
not as bad.
The debris wasn't quite as gross as it is today. So, but that has stayed in the background with me. So the country has a reprieve. Look, I think this Make America Great Again it's going to be a big job.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy, and it's going to outlast Trump. In fact, I almost wonder if. And I don't mean this in a dour way or anything. Just a statement of the magnitude of the task ahead. That Trump becomes a sort of a Moses type figure. He's trying to take us to the promised land.
Yep.
But we might not get to the promised land until beyond Trump. Trump gets us toward there. Somebody else picks up the mantle because I think it's going to be the work of a few decades.
Yeah. Well, he has a lot of work to do. That's for sure. Like even just making America healthy again, making America skinny again, because
something so
well, I was watching some show and they were talking about all of the additives that are in our food and are making us fat.
Yep.
Whereas they can go to Italy or Europe and eat bread and desserts and not gain an ounce because those ingredients, they're pure. They don't have any of these preservatives that we have, and their gut is basically very healthy. And so, just think about it. If we're able to get that out of our food, America just may become skinny again.
I mean, this is we've talked. You're part Italian, and we've talked, but you've never been to Italy. So we've talked about going to Italy and showing you Italy, and you're very careful of what you eat here. And you've even said, like, if I go to Italy, I can indulge, but I'm going to have to be very careful over there. But I think what you're learning is that you do. I mean, we all have to watch what we eat, but you're saying when people eat fresh food and when they do walk and they do exercise, think about all these earlier generations. For them, maintaining their shape and maintaining a certain, pleasant look was not a Herculean effort.
Yeah,
they didn't have to. It wasn't like, running a marathon.
Well, I even think about, the Last Supper with Jesus breaking the bread. He probably was like, guys, just watch the carbs.
Good one.
Watch the carbs. And here's the wine. Watch the sugar, please.
Or I can see you at that table. Let me see the bread. Pass. Let me see the wine. Pass.
Exactly.
Jesus is like, Debbie,
really?
You're supposed to partake of this meal. You're like, well, if you insist.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I will do it. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the... have you been seeing these videos of these crazy leftists reacting to the election? I mean, weeping, gnashing of teeth. There are, I saw this one person, and she looked a little mentally disturbed, but she's basically like, I will not have sex. I will not get married. I will not have children.
But isn't that a good thing?
well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, first of all, suddenly the liberals are discovering abstinence. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay, what are you saying to us? You're saying to us, like, you're not going to have liberal children. You're not going to have ugly children. You know, you're not going to have abortions because you're not going to get pregnant. Because you're not going
to need it. Yeah.
So these, I guess, to me, are all the side benefits.
Oh, the cherry on top. Really, truly.
Here's many people were like, we can't wait to see The View. How are these women going to react?
Yeah.
And the thing about these people is that they never learn. I'm going to quote from Sunny Hostin.
Oh, gosh.
She says, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. And I think it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country. So what she's really saying is that, and this is identity politics, right? She's ascribing an identity to everybody. So I would fall under probably, the Asian male who has embraced cultural whiteness. You would be the Latina in the same category. And I think, ironically, that Americans just want to get away from all this. They don't want to think of themselves
politics.
in that way. And in some ways, these categories make no sense anymore.
Well, they don't make any sense. Now, that's not to say that we don't love our culture and where we came from and that we have a place for it. We celebrate it, all of those things. But it doesn't have to be our identity. Like that's not who we have to be, right?
Right.
It's who we are. Totally, but we're Americans first and foremost. And I think that this was kind of a rebuke against this because Americans are saying, you know what, we're all united. Even the Latinos, even the Rio Grande Valley that came in large numbers to support Trump, which was amazing in and of itself. But even that is saying, listen, we don't care that you're saying that Trump is this and that and racist and whatnot. He loves America. We love America. He wants us to have food at the table that we can afford, and we're all on the same page with that, right? That's what's important, not what she's talking about.
Well, the other thing about it is that this identity politics is all based on cultural affirmation. Except if you're white.
Yeah.
In other words, every group should love themselves, but whites should learn to hate themselves.
Oh.
That's the built-in assumption of all this.
Yeah, white guilt.
White guilt and white repentance.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Do you want to come back and do it on the next segment?
Yeah, let's take a pause. We'll be right back. Yeah. For those of us who've been holding our breath for the past several months, well, we can now exhale. Work can finally be done on the major issues the country is facing, one of the most significant being the national debt. The fact is our nation is broke, and our debt is a house of cards that can't all that easily or quickly be dismantled. So the strategy really for you and for me remains the same. Diversify our savings. That's why Debbie and I buy gold from Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, even out of the president's control. It's important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group, my gold company, will help you to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news, it won't cost you a penny out of pocket. How do you get started? Text Dinesh to 989898. Get your free information kit. No obligation, just information. Plus, right now, through Black Friday, you'll get a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Diversify your savings with Birch Gold. Text Dinesh to 989898. Claim your eligibility for free silver today. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. Forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Think about what you could do with all those savings, but it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is there top priority. Empower yourself today. Take control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way. Let's talk, honey, about these, let's call it the vanishing 20 million votes, right? And this chart is now all over social media. It is, and it's supported by some numbers. Let me actually focus on the numbers. In 2008, Obama got 69 million votes. In 2012, he got 65 million. So a few more. I mean, he got a little bit less, I'm sorry, but in the same range. 2016, Hillary got, you guessed it, 65 million votes, almost the exact same number as Obama. 2024, I'm just fast forwarding to now, Kamala Harris got 66 million votes. Again,
around average.
Yeah, so there's a flat line here, right? And the line varies slightly, but only slightly. This is the Democratic vote.
Between 65 and
2008 to 2024, with one exception. And that exception is 2020. Joe Biden supposedly got 81 million votes. In other words, Joe Biden got 15 million more votes. And at the time, people said, it's really odd that he got so many more votes than Obama. That made no sense. Biden did not have the same kind of appeal as Obama. He didn't have the same kind of rallies as Obama. He wasn't as eloquent as Obama. And there wasn't that electricity for Biden that there was for Obama. But now we're seeing things in a wider perspective. And so what we have is 15 million more votes for Biden. Now, there are about 4 million more votes also for Trump. But so that's where we get to the 20 million votes. But what's happening is seemingly 20 million votes just appeared in 2020. And then just as soon they disappeared. Now, I've been trying to dig into this a little bit more. The first thing that's interesting is that there are a number of people on the left who have noticed it. And let me just read you a couple of things. How can we have had record turnout and 20 million fewer votes cast nationally? This is John Pavlovitz, a big leftist on Twitter. And it's pretty weird that with record voter turnout all over America, there were 18 million fewer votes than in 2020. Here's another site, another handle called Mueller. She wrote, I hope in the coming days someone is able to explain how we had record turnout but 18 million fewer votes than 2020. Both of those things can't be true.
Yeah, exactly
now,
right.
The logic here is impeccable, right? You cannot have record turnout and 20 million votes go away.
No.
That's not possible, right? So but what's interesting is that the people posting this, these are leftists who say there has to be an investigation. We need to look into this. And of course, you and I agree. We need to look into this. Why?
But not for the same reason.
Right. Because they think that there's got to be some impropriety in 2024. They think that 2024 is the outlier. No, when you go back and take a look, 2024 is
even going back to 2004. I think Kerry got 58 million votes and Bush got 62 million votes. So even going that far back,
you're saying we're in the same, I mean? Right.
So Obama, of course, was the big, I guess, boost in election, right? In the
There's
electorate.
There's one guy who whimsically tweeted. He goes, has there been a rapture?
Yeah,
have 20 million Christians been raptured out of this country?
First of all, was this a right winger that said this?
I don't know if it was a right winger, but he was saying it sardonically.
I was gonna say, because if they're Democrats,
if there was a rapture, it wouldn't be Kamala Harris votes or Joe Biden votes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, I think this is very eye-opening because it is an independent data point that supports the idea of a rigged and stolen election. I mean, there are now so many lines of evidence, but as with so many things, the evidence becomes persuasive when things happen independently, that when you put them together, it all makes sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, you're now able to look at the norm, right?
Right.
And so when you do that and you go back even as far as 2004, you're like, the Democrats have never had 80 million people voting. Or 81 million people voting. Usually it's in the 60s.
And if anything, you would think that the conditions of COVID would have discouraged people from,
Right.
I don't think I'm going to get out there. It's more trouble for me to do the absentee ballot.
Even so, I mean, if people are like, well, during COVID, a lot more people voted by mail. Well, there's no COVID anymore. So those very people that felt it was important to vote by mail could have gone and voted in person or by mail. But to not vote at all?
So really what we're suggesting here, I mean, let's answer the question, right? Because here we go. Can we go back to what happened here? Well, really what happened here is that when people say, let's account for those 20 million votes, that's like saying, let's account for the tooth fairy, right? Because what we're really saying is those 20 million votes don't exist. That, in other words, these are phantom votes. These are the invented votes that were used to rig the 2020 election, and we can't search for them because
they're not there.
They wouldn't correspond to actual voters. These were ballots. Probably people lifted off the voter rolls, all kinds of shenanigans. So it's amazing how so many people are now scratching their heads about it. But they and when I give the obvious answer, you can tell the progressives are really stumped.
Oh, they don't want you to
they
go
don't
there.
Want that. Yeah,
No.
they want an investigation, but they don't want that kind of
Not
investigation,
that kind.
right? And so if you were to say to them, listen, why don't you open-mindedly watch 2,000 Mules? You make up
Baseless
your own
claims.
mind.
Baseless claims.
Most secure election in history. But a number of people are now saying, you know what? What we've always suspected is now we kind of now know.
And let me ask you this, because this is pretty blatant, right?
Blatant.
It's in your face, right?
Yeah.
Why is like Fox News not covering it, or is that a dumb question?
Well, it's because Fox News has major blind spots. As you know, I have not been on Fox News since 2000 Mules. I was very much inside of their group. The producers all liked me. I was considered to be a smart guy talking on a wide variety of subjects. So why have I not been on? The answer is that topic and that
The
movie
election
made me
topic.
radioactive vis-a-vis Fox.
Yep.
And so, here you've got Mark Mitchell from Erasmussen, who was just on the podcast, and he basically goes, 81 million votes, my ASS, So smart people know what's going
Yeah.
on. Fox News won't touch it, but it's not because it's not newsworthy. It's because Fox News is demented. Now, in fairness, it should be pointed out that in this election, not all the votes have been counted yet. So in other words, there are some vote numbers that are coming in from California. There are some vote numbers that are coming in from Washington State, some from Nevada, but not 20 million. So the argument that there's going to be a few more votes, yeah, there are going to be more votes. That will close the gap somewhat. But it doesn't account. This is an anomaly that goes beyond that.
You've never seen it, even with Obama, 69. And think about it. Obama got 69 million votes, right? Hillary only got, 66?
65
Something
or 6,
like that.
yeah.
So that's a few. And remember, I told you that the reason I got involved with True the Vote in 2012
Yeah.
is because the Democrats were pulling some shenanigans
Here in Texas.
Oh, yeah. And so, if they were doing it in Texas, they were doing it elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So he may have gotten a few extra votes here and there, wink, wink, himself. So who knows? But really, 81 million, that is just, it's so off the charts, as they say, that it really is.
Well, there's been a lot of reporting about how this year, and we saw this before in the days leading up to the election, voter turnout is like nothing we've seen before. So this is a key point to remember, that it's not that this is a lethargic election where people are indifferent. They don't really care if it's going to be Kamala Harris or Trump, because then you might expect that there would be a scaling back. But no, the media, right or left of center, telling us, no, people are really coming out. I mean, man, look at the lines.
I witnessed it myself. I was in line for 2 hours.
Right.
I've never, ever, and I've been voting since 1984. I've never stood in line to vote for 2 hours.
Well, you said to me something very interesting about our neighborhood, which is conservative, that people were in line, but no one complained, right? It's almost like everybody was very silent. They were patiently waiting. And I think you said this was almost like they were on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like, I've got a job to do. I don't care how long I have to wait in line. And I'm going to send a message with my vote. And they did. Mike Lindell has a heart of gold, and Mike and MyPillow love giving back to those in need. They sent a truckload of 14,000 MyPillows to those impacted by Hurricane Helene. But even though Mike loves to give back, a large retail store just canceled a huge order that had already left the warehouse. So besides giving to those in need, Mike wants to give some big savings directly on to you. For the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices, just $14.88. It gets better. For a limited time, they're offering the entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Get queen-size MyPillows, $18.88. Upgrade to a king for just $1 more. Get the body pillows, $29.88. And multi-use MyPillows, just $9.88. Go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Dinesh, or you can call 800-876-0227. Take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever. And on top of that, get free shipping on orders over $75. These deals have never been offered this low before. The number again to call, 800-876-0227. You can also go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Dinesh. You'll get the standard MyPillow for just $14.88, the lowest price ever. There are limited quantities of this price, and once they're gone, they're gone. We are in a new era, guys. I'd like to invite you to check out my Locals channel, become an annual subscriber. It's a really good deal. I post a lot of exclusive content there, including content that's censored on other social media platforms. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored. You can also interact with me directly. I do a live weekly Q&A every Tuesday. No topic is off limits. I also have a movie page up on Locals. 2000 Mules is up there, the film I made last year, Police State. And of course, you know about the latest film, Vindicating Trump. If you're an annual subscriber, you can watch and stream this movie content for free. It's included with your subscription. Hey, check out the channel. It's dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride. Again, it's dinesh.locals.com. We're back talking about the election, and you know, I think that when you drill into the numbers of the election, you begin to see that this is a little bit like the Reagan election of 1980. And because that was a close election going into it. Mm-hmm. I remember, because I'd only been in the country about not even a year, and the polls are running about even. And it wasn't until it's almost like at the last instant things broke for Reagan. And because now it could have been that people were really considering Reagan, but they needed to be reassured that Reagan would be okay for them to vote for. But that produced a big change in the country. And now Reagan did win 44 states. But Reagan did not have the Congress, both houses, in 1980. And so he had to get his agenda through a Democratic Congress. Now let's look at Trump. Trump's margin is not as big as Reagan's. But on the other hand, Trump will have maybe 53 senators. He will have a fairly narrow but clear House majority, maybe 10 seats, maybe 12 seats. And these are people who will know that our side just won, cleanly, taking all the swing states. So they're going to be in the mood to do things. And of course, our, Brandon Gill is right in the thick of it all. And I was just telling him that, it's exciting for him. Because imagine if he goes to Congress, 30 years old, he's the youngest GOP congressman, but the Democrats have the majority. Or Kamala Harris is the president. So you can do whatever you want, but you're kind of wasting your time. Any law that you can get through the House, or even the Senate, is going to be vetoed by the president. You can't override the veto. Right. So it would have been kind of
demoralizing a little bit
of an it makes you more cynical.
Yeah, but and speaking of that, when Reagan won in 80 and he didn't have the House, you have to remember that the Democrats in 80 were not the same as the Democrats.
That is
now.
true. There were the Reagan Democrats who were, who were sympathetic to Reagan on certain things.
Yeah.
You had fiscal conservatives in the
That's
Democratic
right.
Party, which is now a great rarity.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
saying there are none, but there aren't many. There were also foreign policy conservatives, and they weren't always the same people. So what
Right.
Reagan was able to do is pick off these guys over here for the
Yeah.
tax cut, pick off those
Yeah.
guys for the missile, for the defense buildup. With Trump, we are now in a more polarized era.
Absolutely.
I think it's fair to say. But there's been a rightward drift in the country. I quoted these numbers before, but I'll just give you a couple of these. Think of it. Trump lost Illinois 4 years ago by 17. Now by 8. New York, he lost it by 23 in 2020, by now 12. And then California, Trump lost it by almost 30 points, 29 points in 2020, 17 points. So think about it. There's a 10-point rightward drift in blue states. Now, let me draw out the implications of this, because we often talk about, like, let's save the state of Texas, right? Because we think of Texas as, you say to me, and because I say Texas is red, and I think it still is, but you say, well, it's kind of purple, right? Now, but I want to point out to you that Texas is more red than New York is blue. Why? Because what's the Trump margin in Texas? 14 points. What's the Trump deficit in New York? Let's
12.
look at it. 12.
Yeah.
12 points. So that means that we have, and we're not used to taking these things optimistically, we have the same chance to win New York, actually a little better than they have to take Texas. And yet, they try and we don't. Right? Think of it. Schumer put, what is the amount of money he put in?
He put, I believe, $100 million
against Ted Cruz.
Against Ted.
$100 million. And Ted was, there are some rich Texans who support Ted, but I think that, by the way, I need to say this, that the very bad news is the Republican Party sort of stabbed Ted Cruz in the back. And by the Republican Party, I mean McConnell. I mean the Republican establishment gave no money to Ted Cruz. And they play favorites. They raise money from Republican donors. Republican donors need to wake up and realize, don't give this undesignated money to people like McConnell. They're snakes. They might be snakes who are somewhat on our side, but again, they are perfectly willing to.
Yeah, well, he's thankfully retiring.
He's
right?
retiring, but guess what? John Thune, who's very much a McConnellite, and then Cornyn, who's the same. They're stepping in now. On the other side, there's Rick Scott. If we're choosing between those three, I'm going to have to go with Rick Scott. He's really the only choice. And this is a case where Trump needs to be involved. And by that, because this is critical to Trump's own agenda.
Absolutely.
If Trump just says, okay, you know what, it's not going to work. Trump needs to say, no, I need to have this guy, Rick Scott, in here, my guy, so that we can get this agenda through both houses of Congress. But do you think the country is becoming more conservative, and if so, why?
Well, I actually wasn't thinking that, because think about it. I was thinking Kamala was going to win, so
Right.
I was thinking it wasn't. But
well, you're always worried that the American people are getting such a diet of progressive propaganda that it's almost impossible to resist.
it really is. And I always say this, but the left is just such a cancer on society, like everywhere and anywhere it touches, like all over the world. And I just felt like, it was kind of making its way to America, and people are just not that. I have said things like, if Kamala would have won the election, I would have said, you know what, Americans are just really dumb. I would have said that. I do think that a lot of people that voted for Kamala they don't understand ideology. They don't understand policy, and they don't understand what the left and the right represent. And so they're easily fooled. If the media says this guy is Hitler, he must be Hitler, right? And so I thought, I wonder how many of these people are
you've not only seen the fall of Venezuela, but we've seen people drink the Kool-Aid in many other parts of the world.
Yeah,
Look at Brazil.
Sure.
And we've seen governments all over Europe, even conservative governments. I mean, look at the mess that the Tories made, for example, in England, and then they're like overwhelmingly voted out. And you can't even object because they did such a horrible job.
Yeah, they had it, and then they lost it. And that's what I'm afraid will happen here as well, because we have a chance to show everyone that we are the party of security, anti-criminal,
prosperity, safe
all of
borders,
this, safe borders, everything, right? We have to prove that we are that party.
This is a key point. Republicans too often, and this is I would say the great failure of the Republicans of the era of Dole and Bush. They would essentially treat the country as a holding pattern.
Yeah.
So the Democrats do bad things. Republicans go, we won't do those bad things. We come in, okay, we'll basically do nothing.
Do nothing.
Why? Because we're scared if we do things, we'll get bashed for it. Oh, we can't shut the government down, so big spending bills go through.
Well, even take something like the border. We could have done a border security law, bill, whatever you want to call it, with Bush. We could have. He kicked the can down the road and look where we are. So we have to fix the border permanently, not just a Band-Aid. We have to fix it. We have to fix our immigration system.
And the same can be said of opportunity with regard, we have this remarkable phenomenon, black men now, about 25% voting for Trump. So they're trusting the Republican Party and saying, okay, we're going to give you a fresh look.
Yeah.
But I don't think that their commitment is total. They're basically going to be, show me, right? Show me the money, as Larry Elder says in 2000 Mules. And we have to show them that we can help build ladders of opportunity in the barrios and the inner cities, that they can take practical advantage of.
Because we're not the party of handouts.
We're not the party of handouts, but neither can we be the party of, I would call it, abstraction. So the Democrats go, here's handout, but Democrats go, okay, here's some $100 bills. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And we go, we believe in the Declaration of Independence and we believe in the Constitution. Let's all stand up and sing God Bless America. No, I think we have to be like, you know what? They're going to give you these handouts and pretty soon you're going to run out. And then they're going to say, we got nothing else to give you. But guess what we have for you? We have flourishing jobs. We're creating enterprise zones.
Opportunity.
There's an actual ladder of opportunity that you can see and you can start climbing. And I think if people do that, the sense of optimism, they'll come to believe what we say.
Not only that, but how many of these black men in these inner cities have seen what the American dream is all about? How many of them have ever seen it, have ever felt it? You know,
the only place they've seen it? Trump. In other words, they almost look at it as if it's like they're in Disneyland, right? And Trump is like this Disneyland figure, and it's like he's the embodiment of the American dream. But in their own world, that dream is
can never get there.
It's very much like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
And by winning the lottery, I mean, yes, my kid is in the NBA, but how many people's kids are in the NBA? Or, my kid's a rapper, but how many people's kids are millionaire rappers? So success should not be so elusive, so difficult to achieve.
No, it should be attainable for all.
It should be attainable. It should be, yes.
Yeah.
Not everybody can reach that pinnacle of success, but people
have
should
the
feel
opportunity.
Yeah, and I can make my life better, and then my children will live even better than I do.
That's right.
We're back to talking about the election. Here are some numbers on minority groups. Trump wins Latino men 54-44. Think about that.
That's
Trump
nuts.
wins a 10-point majority of Latino men. He wins white women 52-47. So that's this is the group that supposedly was going to give Kamala Harris the election. White women, not so. And in fact, I think I saw Joy Reid blaming white women. She's like, these white women always betray us. They always stab us in the back. She thinks that somehow there's a female solidarity that she can appeal to. Trump won 20% of the black male vote. So black women, it was still around 10, but real inroads into the black male vote. And this, I think, has reverberated in so many different places. Like if you look at how Trump won Pennsylvania, he didn't win any large block completely, but what he did was he made headway with the Amish. and they're a factor in Pennsylvania. He made headway with the Jews. They're a factor in Pennsylvania. He made headway with Latinos. They're a factor in Pennsylvania. Now you switch to a place like North Carolina. Not so many Hispanics, although there are some, obviously very few Amish. But guess what? There are a lot of blacks. And so getting 20% of the black vote is huge. I read that the numbers for black men who voted for Trump in Texas was off the charts.
That's
in other words,
amazing.
much higher than these numbers that I'm even giving now. And of course, the Hispanic factor, I think, is really making itself felt in Texas. And we've been worried about Texas going purple or maybe even going blue. And the Democrats, of course, they're salivating at this prospect. But I think we can safely say that as long as Republicans continue to make these inroads, now we should say we're actually very sad that our buddy Myra Flores lost. Let's talk about Myra's race for a minute.
So Myra's race, she was in District 34.
Yeah.
It had been redistricted because see, a lot of Cameron County is more red than blue.
Yeah.
However, with the redistricting, there were other areas that were very blue. So essentially, the District 34 became mostly blue instead of mostly red. And then Monica de la Cruz, her district became mostly red.
Right.
Instead of lean blue,
I mean, we have to note that this was a case where the Republicans who did the redistricting, they created a redder district for Monica to win, but by doing that, they created a bluer district, which was very hard for Myra to win.
And Myra let me tell you, she came extremely close. 5,000 votes divided
51 to 49.
Yeah.
You got to give, Myra is amazing because remember, we knew Ray Gonzalez who ran before, and Ray would get about 40 and the Democrat would get 60. And that's just a big delta, right? That's a big gap to close. Myra comes along, Myra gets 44. And Vicente,
she starts closing the gap.
She's closing the gap. And then when we sat down with Myra was very clear-eyed, and she said, listen, this is like a wave that is moving our way, but at what pace is difficult to say. And so she was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it this time, but I will come close. And sure enough, she came so close.
She did. But the other news, though, from the Valley is I always said, my dream is to make the Valley red.
Right.
And literally every county, Willacy County, Starr County, Hidalgo County, and Cameron County all went red.
All went for Trump.
Yeah, which is amazing because they get it. I mean, I think they're starting to understand this.
And some of those counties are, maybe 60% Hispanic, but some of them are like 90.
Oh,
I mean, they are Hispanic all the way.
I mean, as you know, I grew up in Harlingen, and it was mostly Hispanic.
Right.
I think Harlingen has more Anglos than other places, but it's still majority Hispanic.
Right.
So I was just thrilled.
Well, we've also had this conversation over the years, and that is that we've seen a movement in Florida of the Venezuelans, of the Cubans, but those are people coming from a different experience. In the case of Cuba, I mean, they're looking at Cuba, which is this communist, totalitarian society. The Venezuelans are like, look what happened to our country. So it is more predictable that the Cubans and Venezuelans would deliver, let's say, a Miami-Dade to Trump. But we've always known that the Mexican Americans are going to be the hardest.
Oh, yeah. Because number one, they've kind of been institutionalized in the Democratic Party. It's almost like the plantation, the Latino plantation, basically. Grandparents voted Democrat. Their grandparents voted Democrat. Parents voted Democrat. And so they think, well, that's how I vote then. If they did it, I'm just going to follow along.
Well, I remember you quoting your own grandmother who would say to you, I don't know, Debbie, the Democrats are the party of the poor.
Yes, she always told me that. Yeah, she always said, Debbie, you can't be a Republican because the Democrats are the ones that are for us, for the little people, for the poor. And I was like, Grandma, I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to argue on that one with you. And so when I came home and announced I was a Republican because I was going to vote for Reagan, they were not very happy.
It set off some sparks,
Oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah.
But
And so-
fortunately, I mean, you were feisty even
Yeah.
in those years, so you
Yeah.
were able to hold your ground. You didn't back
Absolutely.
down.
No, I did not back down. But, to your point about Florida and versus, the Rio Grande Valley. So I'm both cultures, which is actually a little bit unique.
Right.
Because I understand the Venezuelan culture very well because I'm half. And then I understand the Mexican American culture because I'm half. My
Right.
mom was Mexican American. And so I totally know what each of the cultures needs and wants. The one thing that is pretty common with both is the fact that they're social conservatives and they are religious.
Right.
And they want opportunity.
Right.
The Mexican Americans are there. There's a very few, I guess there's some everywhere really that want handouts. A
Right.
lot of them just want that opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, and it's not even that you have people who come in two categories. These people want handouts and these people want opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
because what really happens is everybody who doesn't have opportunity is going to look for handouts,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of like if you're starving and somebody tells you there's a cheese line over
Mm-hmm.
there, you'll be like, okay, let me go wait in that cheese line because I don't have another option.
Mm-hmm.
When you show people real opportunity, I think at that point, very few people are going to opt for handouts. There will be some.
There will
There
be
are
some.
always lazy people who are like,
and there's people that want handouts no matter what race.
That's what
they
I mean.
are.
Of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
it's kind of like, there's a bunch of apples. No, I'm going to lie right here and
Yeah.
open my mouth, put the food in my mouth.
Yeah.
There are people like that.
Right.
But they're not the majority.
Yeah.
Now, what I think the bigger picture here is that the Republican Party has the opportunity to not only be the party of the working class, the white working class, but to pull in a multiracial coalition
And keep them.
and keep them. That's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because there's something about Trump, and you've seen this in the Valley.
absolutely.
Even the Democrats think he's
They-
funny.
Oh,
I mean, they think
a lot of Democrats, obviously, right? A
Right,
lot of
'cause-
Democrats voted for Trump. They love him.
Yeah, there are Democrats who wouldn't go for Myra, even though Myra is a very attractive candidate. They wouldn't go for Myra, but they went for Trump. They're like, no, we're on board with Trump, but we're going to vote Democratic down the ticket. Now we'll know that those people are really on our side when they actually recognize the difference between the parties,
Yeah.
and they vote straight
See,
Republican.
And remember that before, I guess last year, before everybody started, running for office, I said, the most important thing you can do in the Valley is to make people understand the differences between the parties, because then it doesn't matter who the candidate is, because the person then is not going to, the electorate is not going to vote for the person or the personality. They're going to vote for the platform. Right?
Yeah, this is, I think, this is a very relevant point, because a lot of times Republicans, particularly in the Valley and in similar places, they're like, listen, let me downplay the fact that I'm a Republican.
That's right.
Let me say things like, vote for the person, not the party.
That's
but the
right.
problem with that is then people go, well, I like you,
But I don't like you.
But
Yeah.
and but you're not selling me on a set of ideas at
Exactly.
all. And you and I had talked
Yeah.
about the fact that we would fund a PAC that would make billboards and postcards and just lay out, here's the GOP, here's the Democratic Party, let's go down a list of
right.
issues. This is where because your point is the natural native conservatism of people, they will recognize in the Republican Party, this is what I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened with you. When you went to see Reagan,
That's right.
you were like, everything he's talking about
Yeah.
is what I already believe.
Exactly right. And he even said, Latinos are Republicans. They just don't know it. He even said it.
Right.
So I think it is important that we make people understand the differences, because there are differences, stark differences. And I think once people, not only do they understand the differences, but then they start to see the results, I think they're going to get it, and I think we'll keep them on our side.
And the Democratic policies are so twisted and such garbage today. I think we need to show people that all this garbage is not accidental garbage. It is part of a garbage ideology that links all these things together. In other words, when Kamala Harris, for example, gets caught up in transgender surgeries and so on, she can't get out of it because it's part of a comprehensive ideology.
Yeah.
She can't repudiate those positions because that is what the
That's
Democratic
her base.
Party is.
That's her base.
And that's how she thinks.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
right.
that she's selling ultimately that.
That's right. That's right.
That's what she's selling. She has no other way to get out of it.
Absolutely.
So,
and speaking of handouts,
handouts.
Can I have my money back?
What? Guys, this is what I'm afraid happens very often. This is Debbie's philosophy.
What?
Heads I win, tails you lose. So I'm gonna have to return the the winnings of my bet.
I gotta get you Christmas presents.
Well, this was fun.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.